Hello. Today I'm going to share a video with you regarding travel expenses on expense reports. This is actually going to be video number one of two. There's a lot of information to go over when we're talking about travel expenses, so I'm going to try and break this down into two shorter videos to try and not overwhelm you with too much information at once. This first video, we're going to talk about the travel profile, as well as initiating an expense report, how to fill out the header of the expense report, as well as looking at an airfare and a hotel receipt. And then in a follow-up video, we'll talk about details regarding conference travel, rental cars, personal vehicles with mileage, meals, alcohol, social meals, etc. So we'll cover a lot of different things. But once again, to start here, we're gonna start on our 1.woostel.edu page, which you should have bookmarked by this point in order to more easily access this. Once you're logged in here using a Woostel key and password, you can get to the Workday login by either searching here, or if you've got it in your favorites, by clicking this little heart. It should be here at the top of your menu. So we click that to go to our home page, and then we're going to start by going to our expenses hub. This is where we'll always go in order to create a new expense report, travel related or otherwise. If it's not here in your top apps menu, you can click this view all apps button here, or you can open the menu, your apps menu, by clicking this button over here and finding it in this list. All right, so we're going to click that expenses hub, and then we're going to come to here. So now the first thing I want to draw your attention to is the travel profile. This is a handy little space where you can put in some of your travel preferences, essentially. So when you go and add any of these kinds of expenses, it'll automatically default to what you have here. So you can click this edit my travel profile in order to bring up this menu. These pieces over here are a little bit less useful. If you have a specific vehicle type that you regularly use, you can put some information in there. Actually, these might not even be available. These might not be set up at all for Workday. So I would not really pay too much attention to that. Really, you're going to be looking at these over here. Now, I've got three different ones listed here so that I can show you when I get into the expense report what this looks like having options, but it'll basically just give you a separate menu where you can pull from your travel preferences in order to have instead of having to search through that whole list of airlines. If you have a single car rental agency or airline or hotel that you always go with because you like to collect points with them, or you got some kind of membership with them, you can have just a single one, so that it shows up as your default. So I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna put this as Drury in, and I've got Hertz, and I've got multiple options here. So I'll show you what each of these look like. And you can also, if you go to like one country on a regular basis, you can put in a country here. You can put in multiple countries again, just like these ones here. You can list multiple options. So you just have a short list of like, this is the place I've traveled to regularly. But if you have a single travel country, then that will automatically default as the place you're traveling to. So that's kind of a handy thing to have access to. You click save, and then that goes back into here. And then we click done in order to go back to our expenses hub. Now from the expenses hub, you go back to the overview here, you can see the tasks area, and that's where we're going to create our new expense report. So if you click that, that'll bring you into your header. So this is the header of the expense report, kind of like your cover page. Once again, you've got several required fields here. Most of them are already pre-filled in, and you don't really need to change any of those. So don't change your name is not changeable. New expense report, don't change the company, don't change the expense report date. That should always be today's date. You can change the account you're going to charge. If you're unsure of which account number to charge, feel free to reach out to our office before you get to this point, and we can help get that information to you and how to properly get it entered. The two main things you're always going to want to edit and add are the memo, the header memo, and the business purpose. So the header memo, when you're talking about travel expenses, should always include three things. You should always include the travel destination. And if it's out of the country, you should also include the country as well as the city. So we're going to say travel to Florence, Italy. And I'm just making up some information here. It's not going to be exact. It's not going to match all the receipts I'm about to add to it, but I'm just doing this for example purposes. So travel to Florence, and we'll say on. So the second part is the travel date. So we have the travel destination and the travel dates, that's start and end dates. So we'll say May 8th to 14th, 2023. And then the third part is the purpose of the travel. So we'll say for summer 2023 study abroad orientation. All right, so now we've got our short and sweet but very descriptive memo with those three main parts: location, dates, reason for traveling. The next part we're going to have to do is fill in the business purpose. Now, this drop-down menu here gives you several options, and most of them are travel related. The ones that I recommend you using are these five. We have conference travel, field work and research travel are kind of interchangeable, so use those however you like. We have group travel for field trips, and again, the research travel and study abroad. Those are the main ones that we're going to be using in Sandbox School when it comes to travel. So choose one of those. I'm going to choose the study abroad since that's what this report is going to be about. And I'm going to leave my default account here, but this would likely be charged to like the Florence Study Abroad account if I was actually putting this online. Now, this is the same setup for Procard versus reimbursement. I'm going to show you reimbursements in this example, but if you had Procard charges, you would always just scroll down to the bottom here to pull in your credit card expenses. But I'm going to leave this as a reimbursement expense report. So that was the header or the cover page of our expense report. And now we're on the expense lines section. So you can see that underlined here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click add right here in the middle of the page. And again, you will, like, if you don't have a Procard, you're likely going to click that add button and it'll automatically add a new expense line. But if you do get a drop down and you want reimbursements, that's the option you want. So I'm going to give you a really quick rundown in case you're unfamiliar with the expense report and what it looks like. We've got three main sections. We have this top section of the expense report, and then we have this on the right-hand side, and then this big area down here on the bottom right. So the top section is just a summary of the report. The red bar will always tell us what we're actually doing currently. So we are currently creating an expense report. Here's the details of that expense report. And we have the expense report number as well as the memo that I just entered. And then we've also got us as the payee. The status is now draft because we haven't yet submitted this, as well as a breakdown of all the different receipts and how they're going to be applied on this expense report. Then on the left side over here, we have a column which will list each individual line on this expense report. So each line will represent a single transaction. So every charge to our Procard or every individual receipt that we get for a meal or for an airfare or hotel or whatever, each of those will get a different line, and we'll have to click add and add a new receipt or a new expense for each receipt. Right now, this is a big empty gray box because I haven't yet entered any details in here, which you will find on the bottom right. So when we select a line here, which you can see with this blue highlighted line on the edge, we will see the details of that line here, but we haven't entered anything yet, so there's no details here. So when it comes to submitting an expense, just like any other expense report, you are going to be required to enter 4 pieces of information. First and foremost, we are requiring receipts for every single transaction, even though WashU may have some less restrictive requirements when it comes to receipts. Sandbox School does require a receipt for every transaction. So you can either select this Select Files button to browse your computer, or if you have it up here on a separate folder, you can just pull in from your desktop or from wherever you have that file, and that's my receipt. I just want to point out really quick, when you're uploading PDFs, when you first upload it, it's not a clickable link here, so it's just kind of a file that's attached, but you can't view it. So you have to go back here to view the details. If you wanted to, you could just click this on the left-hand side over here, and that would update any new information, and then it would make this a clickable hyperlinked file here, and you can actually get a preview in the screen. I'll show you that in a little bit, but for now, I'm just going to reference this side sheet over here so that I can see the transaction date was February 22nd of 2023. So the expense date here needs to match the transaction date. So February 22nd, the expense item, of course, this is airfare, and it's airfare to Florence. So we've got international airfare. So if we type in airfare here, and then just type in and hit enter, that brings up a few options for us. Okay, so we're going to select, obviously, international airfare here. And when we do that, it then pops up this additional set of fields on the side that are also going to be required. But to finish this up, step 1 was receipt, step 2 is the expense date, then step 3 is the expense item, and step 4 is the dollar amount. So again, referencing our receipt here, we've got $14.95.25. So we'll just enter in $14.95.25. and click tab. And now that's updated our receipt there. Now at this point, I'm going to show you what it looks like when we pull this information, because that's the 4 pieces that we actually are required to have. We are missing this information over here, but I'm gonna pull this in just to show you what it looks like. So now we've got a clickable link here, and now we can pull up that file here, and we can click through the multiple tabs to get the different pages. All right. Notice we are getting a couple of errors over here, and I want to bring your attention to this. So now that we have a summary of what's on this line, you can see that I've uploaded a receipt. We now have a little receipt icon, but I am getting the red exclamation point and also a yellow question mark. These are 2 different warnings or errors on the page. The yellow are just kind of soft warnings to let you know, hey, here's something you should be aware of. It might be that you could possibly have a duplicate receipt, or might be a warning about the timing, considering this receipt was from February. All travel receipts are supposed to be submitted within 2 weeks of the end of travel. So that's probably what that warning is. And then the red, whenever you see the red exclamation point, that's a hard stop error. You will not be able to submit this expense report until you've fixed all the red errors. In order to figure out what these are, you can just click this banner up here where it says there are 6 errors and 1 alert. Now, those 6 errors are probably all going to be in relation to these required fields that I haven't entered yet. And the alert is probably going to be due to that expense date versus, because this is a travel expense, and we're supposed to be travel. I should have gotten this in, before the end of February, essentially. So if we click on this, we'll get that detail here. So here's our hard stop errors here at the top, and it does say, yeah, here's all these required fields that we have to have entered in, and then the alert. This is just a warning. You need to register on the travel registry, and then also it is giving that warning, having all your receipts for travel in within 15 days after your trip completion. So we'll fix those things. The yellow warning will not go away because of the date. We can't change that date. It has to match the expense. But we will be able to get rid of these red hard stop errors by entering in this information. So we do know this is a Delta expense. So and remember, we had preferred airlines here. So we could either click through to all airlines and we have the whole list. But because on my travel profile, I had selected a few different preferred airlines, you can click that, and now you just got a short list. It makes it a little easier to select of the ones that you prefer to use. So in this case, we've got Delta. We enter that in. Now the departure date for this expense was, let's just check the receipt here. It was on actually May 18th. So I was close on my header memo. I did list May 8th, but this is the 18th. And then the class of service. Once again, we need to know what the class is. So now I do want to pause really quick to just remind you, receipts require 5 individual parts, and travel receipts, specifically airfare receipts, require 3 additional pieces of information. So a regular receipt, any receipt that you're ever submitting for Procard or for reimbursement, require the name of the vendor, the transaction date, line item details, amount charged, and proof of purchase, which this receipt does have all that. We can see Delta up here. We can see the date of the purchase. We can see line item details. We bought a flight, and we have the amount charged, which is on page 2, $14.95, and we have paid with Visa, $49.01. So we have those 5 parts. The proof of purchase is included. So that all makes this a valid receipt. But because this is airfare, we're required to have 3 additional pieces of information. Those 3 additional pieces of information are the travel dates. So we've got departure date of May 18th and return date of June 1st. We have the traveler name, which is listed here. That's my name as the traveler. And we also have to have the class of fare. Now, in this case, Delta has just a letter code. We have K and L. For Southwest, I know they have, Wanna Get Away is their cheapest airfare. WashU does have a policy of only reimbursing economy or coach class airfare. So we want to confirm that this class is appropriate. So I do have an additional document that I like to upload, and you can feel free to request this of me, or if you can find it online. I have this saved in one of my folders. It's just a list of Delta class lists. So we can see here that K is down here and L is down here. Those are both discounted economy class fares. So I'm going to upload that as additional documentation for this receipt. So now that will show that when you look at this and you see K and L as the class, you can always just click over to here and you can see that K and L are discounted economy, and that is a valid class to use. So on class of service, we're going to choose economy. Destination, once again, here we have how country was already pre-filled in because I had that on my travel profile, but I still have to do the destination city. So we'll say Florence and hit enter. And that brings up two different options, Florence, US or Florence, Italy. And we choose the correct one there. And then the passenger is going to be myself. So I just put in my own name here. And that brings me up. So now we've entered in all those pieces of information correctly. We can come back over here and click on the left to update the line. And now you can see the red errors have gone away, but the yellow is still there. And that yellow, again, is just referencing the 15 days after the trip completion to get these submitted. So it's okay, we can go ahead and submit that without it. Now I'm going to add a second receipt here to show you an airfare, or I'm sorry, a hotel expense. So in this case, we have another, I've got a hotel from a guest of the university, but I'm gonna pull this in as if it was my own hotel here. All right, so we've got our receipt. That's step one. Step two is getting the expense date. So we can see the expense date here was May 18th. So we can put that in here. And then the expense item, we're going to say is hotel. Now we hit enter on hotel. It doesn't bring up hotel as an option, but lodging is the right option. So you can tell this is a smart search field. You're going to type in a word here based on what you feel this expense category is, and it's going to give you the best options available. So when we click lodging, that once again is going to pop up some additional required fields over here. It did automatically pull in my Drury Inn hotel because I did only have one hotel listed there. If I had multiple options, then I would be able to pull from the preferred hotels list, but I've only got the one, so it automatically entered it for me. It does automatically enter my name as the attendee in the hotel. And for the total dollar amount on this, we had $264.12. So we'll put that in over here and hit tab. That updates that. Now going back to this, the arrival and departure dates, we have arrival on the 18th, departure on the 19th. So we can put that in here. 5/18/2023 and 5/19/2023. All right, destination in this case is going to be Texas, so Dallas, Texas. There we go. And it changed automatically the country from Italy to the United States because that's where the destination city is. You're not required to put in the hotel address here or the start or end date here since we already have that on the dates, at least on the header memo, but you're not required to put in the hotel address. You can if you feel like it, if you want to keep track of that for some reason, but it is not required by the department or by WashU. Now, in the case of this receipt, we have some additional things that we need to break out. So I'm going to show you what that looks like here. So I'm first going to update the line by clicking over here onto that blank bar, and that pulls in my information that I just edited into it. Now, if you look at the detail for this receipt, we have not just hotel expense on these on this receipt, but we also have overnight parking that needs to be split out into its own expense line, and we also have a mini bar expense for alcohol, so that also needs to be broken out onto its own line. If you also had meals or an Uber or something was charged to your hotel room, anything like that that isn't part of the sales tax or the actual room fee, those are all going to be considered lodging, but anything outside of that should be itemized out into its own categories. So I'm going to show you how we do that. So in order to itemize a receipt, you're going to click under itemization. You'll use the button below if your company's expense policy requires itemizations. And in this case, for the hotels, we do when you have those kinds of expenses. So we know that we had spent $25 on overnight parking. So I'm going to come back here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to itemize $25. And I'm going to change the expense line to parking. And I hit enter, and it brings up a few options. It's not local parking, that'd be local to St. Louis, not ground transportation, but it is parking and tolls. All right, now when I just clicked off to the side to update that expense item field, and now it's updated the amount remaining. So we had $264.12 for the total expense, and I've just taken out $25. So we still have this much left. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. I'm going to click add. And I'm also going to add a $14 expense line for alcohol. So you can see here, we're going to add $14 here. I'm going to hit tab, and then I'll change this to alcohol. Hit click enter, and now it brings up options travel or non-travel. So this would be if we were having a part of the social meal locally. This is because I had alcohol while I was traveling. So we're going to choose that option. And now it gives us a new amount here, 225.12 is the new amount that I have left to itemize. And that leaves basically everything else, which is all considered part of the hotel expense. So I'll scroll down once again, click the add button one last time, and I'm just going to take that 225.12, put it right in there, and we'll leave that to the default of lodging, since that's what I had entered on my main line. Now that I've got it all itemized out, there's 0 remaining to itemize out of that total amount. We can click done. And now we can see that we have an itemized list down here, the 3 different sections that need to be broken out on that total receipt. All right, so now we can update again, and now you see there's a new little icon here. That icon means that I've added some notes and I've itemized this receipt. So we've got 2 receipts here. We've got the proper dates. We've got the descriptions. The expense items are pulled in there. If we did want to add a memo and say, some additional information here, like, one night had drink in room. If you did that and you click this again, it's actually going to replace, or it's actually going to add that memo on here. So you'll be able to see that when you're reviewing, or when we're reviewing these lines, we'll see that it's lodging and your memo directly on that line level summary. So once you're done submitting or getting all of your expenses onto your expense report, you will be able to click submit, and that will route it through for approvals. So this will conclude the first half of the travel expense report videos. I will follow this up shortly with another video. Feel free to watch it for more details. Thanks so much. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us in the business office. I hope you have a good day. Thanks.